very long time since I did one of these lives, and I am super excited today because I have the fabulous Pippa Jameson coming on. Now, you might know Pippa as Pippa, you might know her as the Sensory Home. She's been an interior stylist for a very long time. I'm going to ask her to join me. Oh, how do I do that now? I can't, it's not saying I can let you in. It says I can remove you. I don't want to do that. How do I add you? Here we go. Let's see now. Here we go. Over 20 years. Don't know how that happened. Hopefully she's going to be able to pop in. It worked.
It worked.
I was a bit worried. You know, you're like, I can't remember how to do this, but we're all good. We're all good. Hello.
Oh, hi, Emma. You all right?
I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to talk to you about everything you've got going on. You've got so much going on, and you very recently launched a paint collection with Graham and Brown, which we're going to be talking about today. I have to start by saying I was gutted. I couldn't come to the press launch. So gutted. I was trying to work out if can I just go and show my face. Just wasn't going to work out. So now I get you to myself, which is so much better.
Thanks. It's always the way, isn't it? When, I mean, you were teaching, so you were doing something like really important, but it's always the way, isn't it? There's a clash, but you were there in spirit.
I really was. I talked about your collection. I know it was kind of embargoed at the time, but I was talking about it to all my students. I was like, my friend Pippa's launched a new paint brand. Yeah, it was very exciting.
Thanks, Emma.
So,
thank you.
We should probably get straight to it because I know we're always constrained with time on these lives, and I could talk for 100 years, so I'm going to try not to do that. I've got my trusty clipboard with all my questions so I don't leave
my notes too. Good.
How organised and professional are we? So you have a book called The Sensory Home. You have a Instagram account called Sensory Home. Do you want to maybe share what the Sensory Home is and how it got started?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good question. So I mean, industry, you know me from the industry. So I've been an interior stylist and creative director for a long time, 25 plus years. It was when we met, wasn't it, in-house editorially. And the Sensory Home concept was sort of born around 2019, I'd probably say. And it was born after an early diagnosis of autism from my daughter, and unbeknown to me, a late diagnosis for myself, which was fairly recent, of autism, and I'm also dyslexic. And so about sort of 2019, I started to sort of think about sensory design, and it got me thinking about environment. And we now know that there is that crucial link between how we set up our homes and our happiness. And it was actually my neurotypical daughter one day, and if everyone says I have a light bulb moment, and it feels cheesy, but if I have to say one, then this was it. And she plonked herself down on the sofa and she just said, "I'm so happy at home." And I said to her, "That's such a lovely thing to hear. Like, you know, what is it that makes you happy?" And she basically said, the colour on the walls, the candle, the music. And that was kind of it, where I was like, oh my God, like it is so profound. You know, how we set up our home, that multi-sensory approach to how we set up our home is relevant for everybody. So that was the concept of the book. And that was pre-COVID. But then by the time the book was actually published, and my wonderful publishers, Ryland Peterson Small, understood the concept and they were on board. But once the book came out, it was post-COVID. So like more than ever, everyone had this real understanding of environment and kind of how it affected us. And I had this urge to sort of share this new approach to how spaces make us feel, as opposed to these sort of trend-led concepts of getting a colour because it's on trend, rather than thinking about what's that physiological response that this is going to have. So that was the birth of the Sensory Home, and it's just grown. It's grown because obviously it's lighting, texture, colour, and colour's a huge part. So that's how the Sensory Home has sort of come about, the narrative, I guess, behind the story and the birth of it.
So what had you, like, so you had obviously designed your home and styled your home how you wanted it. Had you automatically chosen colours that were good for you and it had affected your daughter?
Do you know what? That's a really good question, and I'm going to sort of bare my soul and share something with you here. But as a stylist, right, we work with colour. That's our job. We have to know colour. We have to understand colour. But I always had this aversion when we did shoots of working with purples, oranges, reds. Like, I did it because I do it and I understand it, and that's what our jobs are. We have to be a chameleon to whatever our brief is. But I always found it hard, and I always took that as a sort of reflection on my ability. And I now know that I was having a physiological response to these colors, like I just couldn't be around them, and that's because of my neurodiversity, and it wasn't because I couldn't do it. And so for me, having a diagnosis, I've been able to be kinder to myself for that. In answer to your question about how I set up my home, I think it was subconscious, actually. And then when this journey began, I looked around and I was like, oh, so much biophilic design and lots of green, and how many plants, and our lighting's all dimmable. And so I had ordinarily just set up a sensory home, and I was already practicing all of the sort of sensory design philosophy. And then it was so easy to write about and talk about. Yeah.
Amazing. And so I'm neurodiverse as well. I got diagnosed with ADHD. Sounds like a very similar story, actually. I got diagnosed, or slightly, I was diagnosed about 10 years ago. And from being diagnosed myself, I recognized it in my daughter.
Right.
So my daughter's ADHD as well. And yeah, it's very interesting how you go into you understand the things that you've been doing all this time. Like I would say to her, right, it's ready for school. She was, how old? She would have been about 10. I said, right, no, she'd have been 8. Shoes, coat, bag, let's go. And that's too much. I learned that I had to go, have you got your shoes on? Okay, now you've got your shoes on. Have you got your bag on? And all of that. And it's very interesting how understanding yourself can help you understand others and other situations. And I think she's now 18. I've just had to tell her to stop making so much noise because she's been singing as she dyes her hair pink. But going back to color, she's in her really happy place now because she's got blue underneath and she's got pink on top and piercings and tattoos and all that. And actually she's in her own skin, very comfortable and very happy now. And when we talk about her bedroom, I mean, she looks a bit, you know, if you come across people who have got pink hair and piercings and all that going on, you kind of think, oh, but actually she wants her bedroom to be pretty colour pinks with lots of very traditional Laura Ashley sort of styling. And she knows what she wants to surround herself with, and that is very interesting. And the whole, if you're surrounded by mess, especially as an ADHD, it's really distracting. Can't work if there's a mess around me. And her room's an absolute tip. She gets nothing done when she's not working because her room's an absolute tip. But if things are calm because she's got it all sorted, it completely changes everything.
Yeah.
The whole topic is so interesting.
I think you're absolutely right there. And also it's understanding what different people's triggers are. And I think, you know, ourselves, the Sensory Home and Graham and Brown, when we were talking about colour, what we didn't want to do was to tell people what colour they needed, because as you rightly said, for your daughter, what works for her is really bright, bold colours, and then she can feel like she's regulated. And it's really important that you try and understand what those colours are right for you, and you know, finding out what those triggers are and what those comforts are. And that is the sensory design. It's finding something for your unique preferences. But I think across the board, mess is triggering, and lots of people, especially people who are neurodiverse, who I've spoken to, who have been long diagnosed, hadn't realized that mess was a trigger, and that will then you know, create a meltdown. But I think, yeah, it's really important to understand what it is that you can resonate with in terms of color, and trying to find out what that identity is. And clearly your daughter has found hers, which is brilliant.
Yeah, the bright is only in her hair. Her room is really calm. Everything's like, when she'll kill me for sharing this, but when she went to nursery, that she wouldn't sit on the toilet seat because it wasn't pink. Now everything has to be pink. It's like, it's crazy.
I love that.
So how did the paint come about with Graham and Brown? How did that connection happen?
So after the book was published, and I started to think more and more and write about colour and understand colour, I naturally felt like there was a gap in the market for a palette that gave people the choice of something that was just a little bit softer, a little bit calmer, colours that were specifically low in saturation, and gave someone that alternative to a kind of like bright, bold, and almost letting us do the homework for you. And then I was trying to think about, you know, who's this going to sit with? Who does this align with? How can we tell this narrative really sensitively and create these little stories. And obviously I've known Graham and Brown for years. I think some of us in our industry went on press trips with them 10 years ago. And I own a Graham who I work with, who's fourth generation Graham and Brown. They understand the family values. They know what it means to set up a home. It felt like a really natural collaboration. So we started to talk about, what does this look like? What do these stories look like? How can we, if someone wants to feel a certain emotion or create a space to marry that mood, be it focus, rest, or to calm, and that's when the story started to get created. And when I spoke with Iona, she instantly understood and was so invested. And they've got such colour, insight and expertise that we just developed it from there. And last year began the story. And then that's how the four collections came about.
Only last year?
Early last year, yeah.
I really thought you were going to say ages ago. And it's really, I do know. So I interviewed Iona and her dad, Andrew, the CEO of Graham Brown, on the podcast. I think it came out, it was the first out this year, I think. And I do know they're really good at turning things around really quickly. They're really reactive. They're not like, oh, let's sit and discuss this and get it ticked off. It's like, no, let's take action and go now, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew that it was a sort of marriage. So I guess by the time they've come out, you know, a good sort of 9 months, but we already had our sort of, I already understood what I wanted those sort of colours to be. And it was just wonderful to go up to the factory and, you know, with their design director and all of us just to sit down and really think about it and how to sort of attach those stories to it. Honestly, we're like bowled over with the response from it. We are humbled, but more importantly, and I think this is the thing that sort of satisfies me the most, it's seeing the replies and the responses that we've had across the board, from sort of schools, you know, care homes, people who really need these colours, through to sort of Joe Blogs at home that just needs a space that's calm. But to see it being welcomed and needed, that's the thing that makes you really happy, because you don't, I mean, you know, you hope and you know how it will be, but you don't really know until it's launched. So yeah, we're thrilled. Yeah. We're thrilled.
So I've got it written down so I didn't forget anything. So you've got 4 palettes: focus, gather, nook, and rest. From listening to you talking, I think it's really easy to forget that we're interior stylists. We know how to pull colour together, and we know what colours are going to work in a space. We know what colours to use to make you evoke a certain feeling. I think you've gone to a level higher. But actually, people in general don't know that. So I think you've kind of got it together for people so that when they don't know where to start, you've given them a really good place to say, these are going to give you this effect and that effect. Do you want to maybe talk through the palettes and what it is that you can evoke from them?
Yeah, and you explained it really well, actually. That's exactly it. It's attaching the sort of emotion and functionality that you can get from colour, that physiological response that we spoke about, that you can get from colour. So that if someone wants to design an office or a place to kind of come together, or a place to be private, what colours are going to work with that narrative? And bear in mind that this is not dictating, and this isn't going to be for everybody. This is a calmer, low saturated colour palette. So those 4 stories, as you rightly said, the first one's focus. And there's a lovely quote actually from Bauhaus, the German School of Design, that I'll read to you, when they speak about blue. And they wrote that cool blue is the colour of contemplation, ideal for thought and precision. And it was just so lovely from years of sort of research, you know, particularly with the colour blue, that if it is slightly cooler, it does help with cognitive function, it helps with productivity, and it keeps you sort of slightly alert and engaged. And so we're really searching with what is that right level of blue, and that's in the focus palette. And we've intentionally paired it with neutrals so that it doesn't feel sort of too icy. I know that focus is Iona's favourite collection. When we talked through it and I created the set, and she was just like, that's a bit of me. And this is it. You're going to have that instant emotional response. But if someone needs a bit of help with what colours paint an office, or where you're going to be doing something where you need to be productive and engaged, that's kind of what that palette is. And whatever that room looks like for you at home, it's totally your choice. But we're giving you that colour for you to then make the decision of what space that looks like at home. So that's focus. Then we've got Gather, which is a bit of me. So no surprise, it's like deep and grounding, those sort of rich browns and greens. And the idea being is that when we come together, social situations aren't always easy for people. You can feel awkward. Family dynamics can be involved, you know, and it's hard to sort of share. So if we're kind of going to help the mind get into that right sort of cognitive state, to feel at ease, to have a backdrop of calm, that sensory connection is going to become easier because we've kind of done the science with the color. And it's that space is about when you're going to come together and feel held, and like I said, those deep rich grounding colors to make you feel comfortable, which is why we've said it's called Gather, for when you, I don't know, in the dining room or your kitchen table or even in a living room snug. But that's my favorite Gather, which we love. And then NOOK. So yes, NOOK is neutrals, but truthfully, some people's brains can't handle hectic colors. So NOOK is meant to be predictable. It's meant to be familiar, and there's meant to be sort of not too much contrast there. And in a way, it's a cocooning color, because if the eye hasn't got to take in something that's too demanding, not too much contrast, you can just sort of be. And so that's what NOOK is. It's a big hug. And that's probably one of my favorite colors from NOOK, actually, is Warm Baguette. And I just love the name of it. And then we've got Rest, which simply put, the colors are meant to be restorative. So if you think about, you know, when it's time for bed, you want a really sort of deep green, because it's almost a signal for the brain to go from day to night and to sort of go, okay, like, I need to calm myself down now, and how am I going to lower that blood pressure, and how am I going to rest? And so that's what Rest is about: calm and restorative. So, you know, that was our thinking and story behind it, but ultimately it's up to you how you want to place those colors within your home. But it's just giving people as well a bit of a backstory, and it's like holding their hand on making those color choices, really.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of so many different places that can incorporate this. So, like, for example, schools. I've got when my pink and blue hair daughter was at primary school, there were a lot of teachers working at the Tutorial Foundation, which was for kids that had been excluded from school.
Yeah.
And they were quite violent towards teachers, or they were just disruptive, and they basically got excluded and were sent to this Tutorial Foundation. And those are the parents, or the mums, were teaching there. And I was like, that would be so perfect for them to have like a focus color on the walls that would calm them down, help them focus, because the chances are there's something going on there that is, they need to be distracted. So get them to go and take the register to the teacher so they're out of the classroom and not, you know, people can't sit still, they need to get up. And when that's undiagnosed, people can think that the kids are being naughty, but really they're going off. But if they're in a space that's kind of supporting them emotionally without even realizing it, that could calm things down ever so well. I'm sure it calms them down massively, helps the teachers and everyone. Just thinking all the different places you can put it.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, and we kind of know that from the response that we've had that's come in. And you know, so many, like I said to you, are just sort of Joe blogs who want to decorate their home, or they've been looking for something for their dining room but haven't quite found that lovely kind of nature color. And then on the flip side, on the other side, from sort of educational settings, I am actually designing both of the wellbeing centres now for my children's schools, and incorporating those palettes for exactly that reason. Like, what is that functionality of the room that you want to do? And I just think, you know, we need to talk about that physiological response and how colour makes you feel. And I know that when a colour's launched in a trend-led colour, you know, there's definitely still a place for that. Of course there is. But for someone that really wants to create a home on feeling, and you know, what should we have for the NOOK where it's going to make us feel really cozy? Like, where's that backstory of you know, having those colours? And I think having sort of lived experience of sensory response to colour, I just wanted to tell everyone about that and how they can make those informed decisions. But you're right, it's workplace, it's educational settings, it's residential, hospitality, because we all have sensory responses, right, for every single thing we do. And colour is probably like the most powerful instant change that you can make, that's not going to break the bank as much as it will to sort of remodel your home. So So yeah, it's really for every setting, actually.
Yeah. And the more I think about it, the more it's really hard to step out of being a stylist and see it from a kind of Joe Blogs on the streets point of view. But they probably don't think, what season am I? What calms me down? What excites me? What, you know, they probably just go, I like blue, I'm going to get blue. They probably don't think I need to focus in this room, so this color blue is going to help. It just think, I can't see it entering people's minds. It's educating people into how this can really benefit them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a new way of thinking. And I remember when I was interviewed for the book 5 years ago, not 5 years ago, 2022, 3 years ago, and I was on an American podcast, and the word sensory back in 2018 like didn't really exist. And when you Googled sensory, you got kind of like pink rooms with you know, play toys and sensory toys, and of course you would, because that's what children need. But that's my point. It was very much a sort of children's market for real needs, and like I said, there's still a place for that, but where's that gap for everybody else to have that sensory education for themselves and their senses and sort of you know, their meaning? And I just think when I was interviewed and used that word, she said, oh, it's a bit woo woo, and could you explain it to everybody? And I get that, because it was just not being rude, it's sort of not really knowing. And so you're right, the last 4 years have been about sort of educating that, because we now know that there is a sensory link to our happiness at home. Like literally put, the way we set up our home dictates our happiness, our behavior, our mood, our anxiety. That's what we've been doing for 4 years, just sort of educating and building that message about, let's stop thinking about how it looks. I mean, we need to consider that, but the first response is definitely how it makes us feel. And then secondary, we need to sort of, you know, they can work in harmony with each other, like, for sure.
I've just had, there's a message here saying, haha, had this exact conversation with my friends last night. They fall into picking colours in complete isolation. So I asked, what do you want your bedroom, bright or clean, cozy and grounding? It's so true. People just don't.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's, they don't want to have a feeling. They want to have a colour.
Yeah, a look. Yeah. But you can have both.
Yes.
You can have both. So it's just a sort of different mindset. And to give you an idea, like when someone sets up their home, and I always like to sort of say, you could be sitting on your sofa, right, on a chair that's absolutely not supportive, so you're getting ailments in your back. You're looking around your room, you haven't really got any sort of personal connection, so no sort of artwork that maybe means anything, or you know, you've got a colour on the wall that's wrong because it might be sort of facing the wrong way, and it's a colour that actually probably makes you a bit restless. And you might have it in a snug, but you can't quite relax and you're not sure why. And you've got loads of issues with sound because you haven't sorted out maybe the acoustics, and the light's just that little bit too bright. So you're there in your snug thinking, this is great, but actually all those sensory responses, your home's failing you. So we always just say, like, stop, reflect, refrain, and walk yourself through, and like, what are those multi-sensory layers that you're doing? And just, you know, have a think about it. You've got to really stop and pay attention.
So from what I'm getting is that people need to be educated. So we are in a community of interior stylists and designers and writers. What kind of, how can they bring sensory design into their features and their shoots? What would you recommend that they do? Like, what tips would you give people?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think design with intention would be, you know, my first tip to do, and think about firstly who that end user is for. If it's just for a single client and you're an interior designer, it's a lot easier because you can kind of ask them, what's the functionality of the space? What emotion do you want to get from that space? What are you doing in that space? And then you can kind of adapt that multi-sensory approach to marry with that. So the colors we've obviously spoken about. Always go for flexible lighting solutions, so either on dimmers or layered, and there's so much sensory lighting out there now. There really is. Zuma, I always talk about, are brilliant. I'm not on commission from them. So think about those sensory layers. So who is that end user? What do they want that space to feel like? And what's the function in that room? And then you'll be able to answer those multi-sensory questions. What does the lighting need to be like? Does it need to be a quiet space? Is it, you know, for an office or a play area? Is it a bedroom? So the lighting, the acoustics, textures is a really big thing. You know, a lot of people who are neurodiverse have an issue with high level texture, metals, scratching, sounds. So, you know, the materials are like really, really, really relevant, but you're only going to know that when you know who that end user is. If it's multiple users, hospitalities, hotels, or function spaces, you need to start zoning and provide people with choice. So if you're going to design a space that's, you know, high reflective materials and quite a bright color, fine. Have another area that's not that, that's low in saturation and materials that can absorb. But it's really about who's it for, and if it's a multi-use space, divided up and zone, because those small adjustments are really significant.
Yeah, I was laughing when you said the materials, because there's a whole thing about certain fabrics. Like my daughter won't touch certain fabrics, but we can't have labels in our clothes. We cut all the labels out of our clothes, and we've done it forever before. I mean, I was 42 when I got diagnosed. I've been doing it my entire life. But yeah, certain fabrics can't go near them.
No.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, you know, and it really is an aversion. And I think being neurodiverse myself, and if you're not neurodiverse, people's reactions are like, really? And it's never really to be rude. It's just to try and understand. That's what sort of our response is, you know, and there's so many quirks, but they're wonderful. And I don't think anyone's brain is right or wrong. We've all got different brains and they're all right.
Yeah.
So that's how we were born. It's just design needs to adapt and it needs to be inclusive, and we're kind of working our way through that. And I'm just loving being part of that conversation.
Yeah. Did you, we changed the subject slightly, did you name the colours?
Yes. Oh, no,
No.
sorry. I named stories.
You named
not the colours.
Oh, I was going to say, that must have been so much fun. The next collection, yeah?
Yes, yeah, that's to come.
So tell me how you actually, because I would be very interested to hear how you chose the actual colours, the exact shades. Did you go in and mix up different paint colours and go, that's that colour and that's that colour? This is the blue.
Oh my God. It was a long process, and I had so many colours out, and so first of all, I wanted to create what I wanted those spaces to be, like the Nook, the Gather, the Rest, and then it was like, how do those, you know, what do those spaces look like in terms of colour? And so there was a huge edit. And then we kind of went down and down and down, and then we obviously had real paints. How do they behave in daylight? How do they behave later at night? How do they behave with other materials like wood? And so once we sort of had that edit, then we brought in the other materials and elements and see how they responded. And then it was making up the mood boards. And then obviously, you know, we were all together with their team of designers, and we managed to narrow it down. There were a couple that we were like, oh, I don't know. Until we landed. But yeah, it was a very, very, very long process, but enjoyable, but hard and wonderful, and all those words together.
Yeah, I'd imagine if you have to, you know, you have a number in mind and then you've got to edit some out and you're like, oh, it's between these two.
Yes.
I love them both. Oh,
yeah, we knew we wanted 16 and we knew we wanted 4 in each collection. But yeah, it was great actually. It was, looking back now that it's done, I can start to appreciate the process.
Yeah, I'm sure when you're in the thick of it, it's just like, oh, there's too many.
Yes.
Where can people get hold of the paints?
So you can buy them from both of our websites actually, so thesensoryhome.com and Graham & Brown, and we do the peel and stick, which is brilliant. It's a lot more sustainable, and you can kind of order them, and you can order them in collections, so you can order the 4 samples in each one. So yeah, they're available now. So yeah, try them out, and like I've said before, with anything we do, like if you want more of a backstory on the colours or you're not sure, we're both really approachable, so just get in touch and ask, and I can kind of chew your ear off about which ones I think you should have.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, isn't it? Knowing that this is the right colour for you.
Yes.
Which, I didn't give you this question, but which is your favourite?
So I think it would have to be Uluwatu, which is the deep green, or Chimney Sweep from Rest. They're 2 of my favourite, and Warm Baguette from Nook, I think.
So not one. So you're basically choosing one from each one, yeah?
I can't pick one. Okay, if I had to pick one though, I think I would probably go Chimney Sweep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
what about you?
Everyone's going to test me. I like them all. The thing is,
Yeah, so
I'm not a muted colour sort of person.
no, of course, yes,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
very strong
I
colours.
knew
I
that.
mean, I don't even know if you can see the colours going. These two colours don't go either. I just
They're
couldn't paint
gorgeous.
over this. But I'm a quite
You are.
not bright. Well, I am a bright colour person.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. I knew that.
But I love them. I think it's the tone. You know, when it's like they're muted tones. Like I've just done my living room and it's blue, but it's a very oh, I don't think you can see this. This is my water bottle.
Oh,
It's
I
this
can
kind of,
actually.
it's
Yeah,
this colour blue, and
yeah.
it's so beautiful. And as you were talking, I was thinking, when I did a makeover on my living room many years ago for Essentials magazine, and that's closed many years ago. And I changed it from a very black, very bold wallpaper, and I changed it to a more grey wallpaper in silver, and I hated it. The moment I did it, I hated it. I got a sofa, and I got new cushions, new curtains, everything. And I would sit watching TV, but I wouldn't be watching TV. I'd be looking at the wall going, it's not good. And I'd look at this dresser that I'd painted, and it was like a teal colour. And every time I look at it, I go, I love that. This is not working. And instead of watching TV, I'd be watching the colour and thinking, this is not working, this is not working. And now I sit and watch TV and I look at the blue and I just go, oh, I love it so much.
But this
and
is
that
good.
is what you want. You
Yeah,
want to go,
yeah,
I have hit the nail on the head
yeah.
for me. Doesn't matter what the husband wants. He gets a choice of this blue or this blue. They're both my blues. It's that I can feel the colour is
Yeah.
right. And I think that's what you've done. You've created a paint that will feel right, and people need to feel good
Yeah.
in the space they're surrounded by. And you've kind of given that added element of it feels good, but it's doing good as well, whether you realise it or not. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, well, you've nailed the explanation there. I couldn't have put it better myself. It's exactly that. It just should make you feel happy. Like all those elements in your home, you should look at it and be like, ah, not look around and go like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like wound up. So yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be looking like watching TV but distracted by the colour of paint on your walls. That should not be the way it works.
Not in our
No.
world, Emma.
Exactly. So, the sensory home, I know you as an interior stylist. I know you've done TV work, you've done so much stuff, but do you want to maybe share the breadth of what it is that you do under the sensory home and your styling work, what people can find at the sensory home?
Yeah, so I mean, I still work as a stylist and creative director, and actually the two businesses have amalgamated into one. And what I'm finding now is that we're sort of slowly partnering with different retailers from each of those sensory pillars. And obviously we have our wonderful colour partner now, Graham and Brown, and we are kind of planning to partner with a lighting company and this acoustics company and furniture to really talk about that, what that means and what that looks like, and carry on educating. So I guess that's the sort of commercial offering of where the business is. But then in terms of helping kind of real people, I do now work with schools and charities. So I'll go and give talks to parents of neurodiverse children to talk about how they can set up a sensory friendly home. And that's working out. I mean, I get so much from everything I do, but to have one-on-one with parents about, oh my God, I didn't know that, and that's why they're not sleeping, and that's so much value for me. And obviously the schools, because they don't have any money. So that's the sort of charity side of the business. I'm doing some consultancy to help retail spaces on how to set up sensory design. And I'm actually going to be doing some free mentoring again that I'm going to announce for other sort of creatives on building business. But the sensory home as a whole will continue to grow, and I'd like it to be the hub where everyone can come to get advice on how to set up sensory spaces and environments. That's the plan, to be that sort of information source. And it's all going to plan. It takes a lot of time.
Sure.
But I'm loving it. I just feel like everything is sort of led to this design with purpose, and I'm really happy. I'm probably happier than I've ever been doing it. So that's a sign, isn't it?
Absolutely. You found your it's kind of like everything leads to where you need to be. I think
yeah,
the journey has taken you to here, so you can be there.
Exactly that.
Your why is to help other people, you see.
Yeah.
And you're helping other people.
I like it.
Yeah.
People are weird and wonderful, and that's brilliant. Me being one of them.
I was going to say, you're saying that to me, right? Oh yes.
No.
No, it's marvelous. I think I just marvel at how much you get done. And every time I think I know what you're doing, you do something else. You're doing TV. Oh no, now you're doing this. Now you're doing that. You're just like, you are a whirlwind of creative energy. It's fantastic.
I think I realised that I'm at my happiest and most focused when I'm sort of spinning many plates. And in fact, the busier I am, the easier I kind of find it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is busy, but it's wonderful. Yeah. There's lots going on, lots to come. You know, may we continue this mission on sort of setting up inclusive, comfortable homes.
Amazing. I'm not going to ask you what's next because I know you can't share what's next until tomorrow. So when you share it tomorrow, I will share it so people watch this space. Very exciting, very exciting. I don't know. I have an idea, but I don't know. So very exciting. But Pippa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Love talking to you. You're pure inspiration. You really are. You're incredible.
Thank you for having me, Emma.
Well done. Yeah. Congratulations on the new launch. It's phenomenal.
Thanks again. Really nice to talk to you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye. Everyone.
Bye.